All right, 7 o'clock on the dot. We're going to start tonight's regular meeting of the East Lyme Inland Wetlands Agency. It's Tuesday, September 3rd. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll go through some introductions. We have Phyllis Berger, Greg McIntyre, Doreen Ryan, I'm Kristen Chantrell, Len Salter, Don Fimister, Ryan Williams, and we have Gary Gaishels, our wetlands officer, and Chikello is here from the Board of Selectmen, and Sue Spang is our recording secretary. So first, do we have any additions to the agenda today? No. We're going to move to public delegations. Public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission about certain matters, issues or concerns related to approved wetland permits, and in-house proposals or general topics of discussion are open to comment. Agenda items, referrals, applications subject to a decision by the commission, a public hearing, or in litigation may not be discussed. The members of the commission will not directly answer questions or make comments during delegations. So just to be clear, if anyone's here to speak about any of the public hearing, this is not the time to talk, but if we have another matter that we'd like to discuss, now would be the time. Okay. So moving forward then to our first public hearing is for 8 Brookfield Drive. We have Andia and Plume Licolari, applicant and owner. The application to construct a single-family dwelling and associated appurtenances within 300 feet of an inland wetlands and watercourse.
Madam Chair, just for the record, I would like just to note that the public hearing notice was published in the 8/23 and 8/30 editions of the day paper, and it reads as follows. The East Lyme Inland Wetlands Agency will hold a public hearing on September 3rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the East Lyme Town Hall, 108 Pennsylvania Avenue, Niantic, Connecticut, to consider the following application. A, 8 Brookfield Drive. This is Andia and Pelham Licolari, applicant owner, application to construct a single-family dwelling and associated appurtenances within 300 feet of an inland wetlands and watercourse. Copies of the specific proposals are available for public viewing in the land use office.
Who's the best place to set something up for everybody?
Probably maybe just behind the recording secretary in that open. There we go. Maybe if you go to the right, so if Sue needs to turn her head and take a look at it for some reason, yeah. Okay. Great. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Norm Tebow. I'm a licensed professional engineer and representing the Licolaris this evening for a proposed single-family development on 8 Brookfield Drive. The plan that we originally submitted with the application has been modified. Originally, the plan that we submitted had the driveway on the southern side of the lot and proposed no wetlands disturbance whatsoever. However, due to the fact that the abutting property, there was a well that we had to take into consideration that we were not aware of. We had to make adjustments to the septic system, move it further away down gradient, and that in turn interfered with the driveway to the site that we had originally designed. I wanted to get a small copy that I could refer to here. So what we have now is we are proposing a crossing for the driveway. As you can see, it's kind of centrally located on the property itself. This driveway will result in approximately 355 square feet of direct wetlands impact. as opposed to previously when we had none at all. This is a two-bedroom house. It's all we can really fit on there for the septic system. This is a pre-existing lot of record, pre-existing non-conforming lot of record. It was formed by subdivision in 1969, and therefore it's a 20,000 square foot lot that is in a zone currently zoned for as R40, which under today's regulations would require a 40,000 square foot lot. One of the other things I think it's important to note is that this entire lot is within the 300-foot upland review area. In fact, it's within 100 feet. All activity on this lot is completely in the upland review area. The septic system itself, by today's standard, would not be able to meet health code requirements. The health code that was developed in 1982 requires that septic systems have to be installed 50 feet from an open water course. We cannot make that 50 feet and stay 75 feet from the well on the adjacent property. However, because this lot was created prior to 1982, there is some language in the health code that allows us to construct the system within 25 feet of the open water course. We do exceed that 25 feet. I believe we're approximately 35 or 36 feet. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we do meet that requirement. The plans have been submitted to Ledge-Lite Health District. They are currently on hold for review. The well location that we show on the plan was based upon positioning that was stated to us by the previous owners of the property. The health department has requested that we locate that well via survey. However, it is on the abutting property, so in order to do that, we would have to get permission to locate that well on the abutting property. What we have proposed a series of staked hay bales and silt fencing for erosion and sedimentation controls during construction. We also, for the installation of the crossing, we are proposing to put in 40 feet of 24-inch pipe, which would match the diameter of the pipe that currently crosses beneath Brookfield Drive. During construction, we have crushed stone check dams on either end of the pipe to assist with any potential erosion or sedimentation that might occur as a result of putting that pipe in. And of course, it would have to be done during low flow periods of time when typically later in the summer when we don't have quite the amount of rain that we've had over the last year or so. We would recommend that the pipe is put in during the low flow season. We do have a wetlands impact report being prepared by Ian Cole. That is not completed yet. So we will have that to the commission for their purview for the next, prior to the next meeting, and Mr. Cole will be here at the next meeting as well. We fully anticipate that this will be continued until next month, but due to the time constraints initially, because I believe there was some notification that was missed previous to the last meeting, and we are kind of at our deadline to open the public hearing this evening. Otherwise, we'd exceed that 65-day deadline. So in order to get the ball rolling, give you all a flavor of what we're doing here, and obviously give the public an opportunity to express their concerns tonight. We're here before you to give you at least the start of our presentation and explain to you what we're doing here tonight. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this point.
I do have some questions. We visited the site this past weekend and saw the slopes from the top corner down to the water course. I'm just wondering how much fill you're going to bring in for the house to be built up in that
Actually,
corner.
we're working the house into the slope itself, so in order to meet, slope requirements on the driveway and so forth, we really can't get up to that level. So the intention is to sort of, sink the driveway into the terrain. In the back of the house would be a walkout at ground level, and it'll be a drive-in garage, similar to like a raised ranch, where the only real fill that's going to be brought in is the septic fill. There's actually going to be a net export of fill from the property in order to develop this property.
And so the location of the septic currently is where on the plan?
It's located. Let me see if I can point it out here. It's tough to.
Right there.
Right there, in that area there. I don't know if Gary can zoom in a little bit there to kind of give you a little better view of where we are. That red circle is the 75-foot radius based upon the positioning of the well that we were given. Obviously, I think Gary told me, and actually the health department actually told me too, that there was some concern that that was not the proper location of the well. So we do want to make sure that we get that correct so that we meet the health code requirements.
Okay, so for the septic system, because the property was deemed a buildable lot quite a while ago, can be 25 feet from the water course, but the 75 feet from the other well is a hard.
70. Yeah, that's the hard number from the health department. There's no waiver of that for a newly developed lot. The only time you can get a waiver for the 75-foot well radius is if there were a repair were required and there's no other place to put it. Then they do make exceptions in that circumstance. But we don't have that luxury here.
And what about the runoff from the driveway? Where is that going to be directed?
Well, we do have, it's going to be sheet flowing across the driveway, and we're going to have, vegetation between the driveway and the wetlands itself. So it'll just be a cross slope. Actually, one of the things that I just spoke with Ian Cole today, who is the soil scientist, he suggested that we put in maybe a crushed stone trench on the down gradient side of the driveway to intercept that first flush and any potential sediment that might be generated with rain. So that's something that we're going to take a look at.
Do you have any questions? I mean, I'm sure once we see the other reports, we'll have other questions. Anyone else have any questions?
I assume that the turnaround on the driveway couldn't be located on the other side for septic reasons or some of that?
That's right. Yeah, it's because of septic reasons. We have the slope for the septic, so you can't have a cut slope within 15 feet of the septic system by health code. Otherwise, they have concerns about breakout because that septic system sort of comes down, the slope there to the driveway, and we have the slope more or less finishes at the driveway. The only way to cut a turnaround in the driveway would have to be to cut into that slope adjacent to the septic system. I mean, the other option would be a back out all the way out to the road.
Any other questions right now? Not yet. So, should we open up to the public?
You certainly can. I will note that staff has had a chance to take a look at the initial plans, but being that the plan has been revised, we do have the plan that you see before you. That's in my office and available for public inspection. It has been disseminated to our town engineer digitally, so although we are awaiting his review, and as Norm's indicated, as well as Light, and I too would like to further review that and see if it addresses my previous comments.
I have some hard copies I could leave with
You
you
can leave-
tonight.
oh,
as
that'd be-
well.
That'd be efficient, yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
Yeah, that'd be great.
okay. I actually have 11 by 17s if the commission would like copies of them. So I can pass those out.
That's fine. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so if anyone here would like to speak to the commission about this application, we just ask that you come to the podium, you state your name and your address, and you address all the comments to us, and then we will then direct them to the applicant. So, would anyone like to come up?
Good evening. My name is Ryan Hoyler, and I'm an attorney who represents Michael McCormick, who is the owner of 10 Brookfield Drive, the adjacent property. The first thing I want to note tonight is that there was an error in the public notice, not the publication notice, but the mail notice that was sent out to all of the neighbors, which stated the incorrect date for the hearing. At least one of the two notices, I don't know if the second mail notice had the incorrect date, but the first one did. I've submitted a letter to Mr. Gaishel, and I have copies of it with me here tonight to hand out to the commission if you'd like hard copies, where I explain the case law that says that the hearing essentially can't go forward tonight based on this incorrect notice. I am ready.
Do you have the copies?
I absolutely do, yes. All right, so, and there should be one for you in there, sir.
Thank you.
I apologize, they're not stapled. We literally just moved offices this week, and I'm trying to find a stapler. So we're trying to be more efficient, so fewer staplers.
Office space is coming tomorrow.
The copy of the notice letter is attached as Exhibit A to this letter, and you'll note that the date of the hearing states March 11th, 2019 at 7 p.m. So with respect to this hearing proceeding, I am prepared to go forward tonight and explain some things. I am going to keep it short because I understand we will likely be coming back, and I don't want to waste everyone's time. But I do want to alert the commission, the agency, to this issue. It does present a potentially appealable issue from someone else or even potentially my client if you do go ahead tonight. So that's just something to put out there. Additionally, attached to the letter as Exhibit B, and again, I'm going to try to keep it short. I'm not going to go through the whole letter tonight. You have it in front of you. This shows during the ownership of the current owners, the applicants here, extensive vegetation that was done between March 2016 and March 2017 on this site, apparently without a wetlands permit, all clearly within 300 feet of the upland review area. As of right now, when you walk through the site, I was there for the site walk on Saturday, you can see multiple stumps of trees pretty much right along the stream, which based on these pictures appear to have been cut down during the ownership of the applicants. This presents a significant problem for the agency because any approval based on the plans that don't include this work is essentially granting the applicant the ability to violate the wetlands regulations by cutting things down and then not getting approval for them. So we would ask that the application that comes before this agency include all of the work that has already been done on this site, including the devegetation that has been done previously to this application going before you. You can also see, as Exhibit C, these are pictures from my client who has taken them. I'm not going to waste everyone's time tonight and have him come up and testify. We can explain what they are at the next hearing if you would like. He can come up and testify. But these are pictures of the neighborhood during recent rain events. And you can see exactly how much flooding has taken place. And, this is, you've seen this site at the site walk, you know where it is. There's a brook that runs through. There's a drainage on the other side of the street, and all of this water is already there from the current flooding rain events. adding to the impervious cover will simply just make it worse. Finally, I do want to point out tonight that the wetlands regulations do not, or the wetlands statutes do not require any kind of approval for this. Just because the lot was subdivided prior to a certain point, the statute states that the only as of right approvals for a single family home under the Wetlands Act are things that had permits as of, I believe it's 1987. That's correct, July 1st, 1987. There's no building permit for this site, and there certainly wasn't on July 1st, 1987. So there is no as of right ability to construct a house under the Wetlands Act on this lot. So you absolutely have the authority to review this, and you do need to permit it to allow it to continue. I'm not going to go through everything that's an issue tonight. When we get the plans from Mr. Cole, we'll be able to review those and come back with more, I'm sure, issues. But for tonight, I just wanted to stick to these issues. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, Gary, actually, I kind of have a question for you as far as moving forward, for your legal expertise. I don't want to, take a public hearing and have it be appealed down the road, so I'm not sure we've had this issue before.
Can we start it and then leave it open? Does that,
Continue the hearing.
does that solve the problem or no?
No.
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 I believe what would solve the problem is if the applicant withdrew, reapplied, and we went through the whole process again, renoticed the hearing. That way they can correct the notice that was sent out. There's no other way to correct that other than reapplying. In addition, that would address one other aspect, or potentially, I think it can be addressed either way, and that is the including all the previous work that was done and devegetating or whatever that entailed. So that could be incorporated. In either case, if we continued forward, I would need to read through this letter here. There, maybe Mr. Hoyler could distill it down even further. Would you correct me if I'm wrong, if there was another remedy to this application other than withdrawing and reapplying to correct that notice?
I am not aware of one, and again, I'm prepared to defend this tonight. My concern is if you move forward, there may be another neighbor who is confused about when the meeting was because of the notice, and they absolutely would have a right to appeal that. I am not aware of another way to fix it other than to withdraw and reapply.
So I would say, in terms of that, you have the public who is here.
Yeah, I know.
Without taking everyone's name, and again, it just takes one person. They don't even have to live on the street. Exactly. Well, no, they would have to be within the radius, within the 200-foot radius in which they are required to send notice, one of those 200-foot abutters.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And again, I really don't want to waste the agency's time. I feel bad kind of about bringing this to your attention because everyone is here tonight, but it absolutely is an issue.
so my understanding is that if the person was not here and then they appealed it, they would be aggrieved. But if they showed up and said, hey, the notice was an error, they're not necessarily aggrieved because they did show up and they knew about the meeting.
Although I would state that the case law that I cite says that theoretically, at least, even that's not the case. As far as public notice goes, public notice is public notice. You have to do it properly. Even if there's actual notice to the parties, they can still appeal based on the failed public notice.
Correct. So having received this at the last kind of hour, I thought it was best that we at least continue forward with what was noticed in the paper. And knowing that there was going to be a crowd here tonight, if you want to continue to take testimony, we can. But I think at this point, it's really looking at the applicant and saying this is going to have to be, essentially their decision whether or not they withdraw or how they want to proceed forward.
It would also
Notice, if there is an appeal, it's an appeal of this agency's decision. So it's not necessarily the applicant who's fighting that appeal. It's the town.
And just one other small point, it might also permit the applicant to, again, revise the site plan, as we've pointed out in our letter. The location that they claim is the well on the site plan is not the location of the well. My client has gone out and actually dug a 4-foot hole in the exact location, and there is no well there.
So I guess with all that in mind, since there are people from the public here, would it benefit us all to hear a few things that maybe the plan could then be potentially revised based on public comment, or should we?
I think
mean,
the next questioning should be back to the applicant and ask them if they would like to withdraw or how they would like to address this issue, and then we'll proceed from there.
Before we do that, in the middle of that big red circle, the approximate location of that well is called out per owner. And my question is, if it's not there, then why does it say per owner? By what mechanism of information exchange result did that happen?
I can clarify that. For the record, once again, Norm Tebow, Killingly Engineering. My client is, I probably should have said per former owner. My client owned that property next door. The people who are developing 8 Brookfield Drive, the Licolaris, owned the property next door, and that's where they told me. So it probably would have been clearer to say per former owner and not just per owner.
That does kind of read that Michael McCormick told you where the well was.
Yeah, that's certainly incorrect on our part. And with regard to the notification, I concur with Mr. Hoyler on this 100%. As far as the notification goes, I agree with his synopsis of this and about the appealability of it. Should it go forward? I have no objection to that whatsoever.
Okay, appreciate that.
If there are no further questions, I'll,
Yeah, any other further questions? No? Okay,
So I think, Norma, we would need something in writing from you or the applicant stating that you're willing to withdraw the application.
Do you want me to just scribble something out, or can I just send you something formal on our letterhead tomorrow?
You can send me something formal. I think if you would maybe, for the record, on the record, say you will formally state it for the record, and then we'll get something in writing. That would be fantastic.
All right, thank you. All right, and once again, Norm Tebow, Killingly Engineering. By advice of Mr. Goschel and per the testimony, I do agree that the application should be withdrawn at this time. On behalf of the applicants, I will do so, and get Mr. Goschel a formal letter of withdrawal tomorrow.
okay,
Okay.
all right. All right. Thank you. So that concludes that application. Thank you for those who came.
Yeah.
Do we have the protective order?
Looking at the topography, so when I said 25, 1969, I wonder if there was a ditch running through like that, or because of the water coming from above, it's just created that.
I'm gonna plead the fifth.
If you look at the whole development, there is a stream that goes into the upper corner.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next public hearing. All right, so the next one is 294-2 Flanders Road, 296 Flanders LLC, applicant and owners. The application for a proposed light manufacturing facility of approximately 185,000 to 215,000 square feet with parking lot and retaining wall.
Good evening, everybody. For the record, my name is Matthew Bruton. I'm an engineer from BL Companies, headquarters at 355 Research Parkway in Meriden, Connecticut. They are, okay, perfect. So then, okay, right, let me set this up anyways then. Yep, it's Matthew Bruton, it's Bruton, professional engineer from BL. You want to just leave it the survey, I'll just have you kind of maybe go through the plans as I'm walking through them. Okay. All right, so since the last time I was in front of you, I believe you've been able to do a site walk as of this past weekend. We were able to receive comments from multiple town departments and respond to those. And then I'm obviously here to kind of walk you through the plans as they sit and hopefully answer any questions you guys may have. So Gary can bring up the survey, it's up on the board there as well, but just a reminder, right, 296 Flanders Road, approximately 22-acre parcel, currently an unoccupied parcel, previously a driving range, most recently, prior to some of the off-site road work for I-95 ramp there expansion. Wetlands, if Gary scrolls down to the second page, wetlands are on the western half of the property, adjacent to the river. We do have a portion of the site within the FEMA flood zone and also the aquifer protection area as well. Surrounding lots include a cemetery to the north, the True Value hardware store to the east, Costco to the south, and obviously to the west is the Patagonia River. So the plan right there obviously shows the existing conditions, but I'll have Gary scroll down to the site plan. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. All right, so the proposed plan obviously shows around a 184,000 square foot light manufacturing facility with associated parking. This includes several site driveways, and I could have maybe Gary circle them. So starting from the upper right-hand corner, there's a proposed combined driveway with the adjacent True Value development. Coming down towards the middle, down frontage road there's a proposed driveway with a new potential traffic signal in concert with the state. And then if you continue to the left there, another driveway entrance across approximately from the Costco entrance with their fuel facility there. The proposed layout here does not have any direct wetland impacts to any of the existing wetlands, but obviously we do fall within the upland review area, and that's why we're obviously here in front of you guys today. In general, I think maybe so if Gary can maybe trace it slightly, so the closest we are to the wetlands is in that kind of upper left-hand corner where Gary's mouse is. To the edge of the parking and a retaining wall there, the closest we get is approximately 32 feet. But you can see obviously the majority of the improvements are the parking lot area, but we do clip a corner of the building in that upper area as well, but the majority of it is just the parking lot.
Go back up just. So the dotted line that goes and clips the corner of the building is a 300-foot review?
Correct, yeah, as Gary's tracing it now, that's your 300-foot upland review area. But the closest we are to the wetlands, Gary can scroll back up slightly, is the corner right there, that area. From that wetland flag to the retaining wall, that's the closest we get, 32 feet. So again, no direct wetland impacts, just upland review area, and the closest we get is 32 feet. So obviously, as part of the proposed development, there's obviously nothing there now. So we're proposing obviously this, development, and with that, we need to do obviously the subsequent improvements for the stormwater management system. So obviously, with an increase in impervious area, the goal is to provide a system that only captures and retains and balances the peak flows, but also provides water quality improvements. So when it's discharged to the wetlands, there's no detrimental impact. So we have, yes?
In your engineering evaluation and decision to use impervious surfaces, this is typical for parking lots and loading docks and whatnot.
Correct.
I don't think I saw a record of any permeable pavement options, either evaluated or implemented in your plan. Is there were they considered? And if considered, why were they not selected?
Yep, great question. So two things in use of permeable pavers. Half of this site is in the aquifer protection zone, so infiltration is not allowed. Obviously, as you're trying to protect the water quality for your recharge. So portions of the site it's not allowed. The other portions of the site that is usable for infiltration, the groundwater recharge, what you'd want for pervious pavement, is on the left-hand side. So really the loading dock areas adjacent and closest to the wetland. And the types of pavement aren't really conducive to kind of that heavier truck traffic. Require some maintenance that's kind of not ideal for the type of use we're proposing here. So I'd say it's not out of the question, but it wasn't something that we looked at it as terms of like our top choice in terms of what we were looking for to put on the plans for the development here.
Gary, to what degree is trucking, parking of trucks, loading of trucks agreeable with the existing zoning regulations and development plan for the area?
So in terms of the truck loading docks and the trailer truck parking, I believe those uses are, as you said, they are regulated by zoning. My understanding was that the tractor trailer parking was expressly prohibited in the Gateway Plan Development District. That being said, I will, and I don't even know if that Matt has a copy of this memorandum I received today from the zoning department, because Mr. Mulholland had commented on that specific issue. So I do have, for the record, a letter that Mr. Mulholland generated in regards to the use not being a prohibited use. Then a subsequent.
Can you repeat that last statement?
So I have a letter from Mr. Mulholland indicating that the proposed use would be a prohibited use within the zone. I have a second memorandum from Mr. Mulholland that I have not even fully completely read, and I can read that into the record either now or...
Yeah, that's fine. If you topics on the table, and I haven't seen it, so I'd love to hear it too.
It's memo to G. Gaishel, East Lyme Inland Wetland Agency, September 3rd, 2024, regarding the wetlands referral, proposed light manufacturing use of 296 Flanders Road, LLC, 296 Flanders Road, East Lyme. I have been asked by the applicant to submit an update to my recent memo to your commission on the above referenced project. As you are aware, my previous memo noted that the applicant and I had not met to discuss and review the zoning aspects of their proposal. Recently, I met with the applicant to perform a brief review of his proposal for zoning compliance. We reviewed the proposed use and discussed the site plan traffic and the stream crossing. As a result of this meeting, it was determined that in order for the project to proceed, a text amendment up to the zoning regulations would be needed. To date, I have not received such a proposal. If submitted, it would be to the subject of a public hearing at which the zoning commission would evaluate the merits of the regulation amendment and determine whether the proposal was in the best interest of the town. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Sincerely, William Mulholland, zoning official. So it looks like there is still potential remedy, I guess, for the applicant to continue forward until he exhausts that. That's something that they'll have to just contend with. That's their issue.
Yeah, and Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding with the conversation with the applicant and Mr. Mulholland is obviously planning and zoning, that zoning group can't move forward, obviously, and vote on anything until wetlands takes place, right? So the goal is to continue this process, and obviously we'll have a text amendment, and planning and zoning would still need to happen after this agency reviews.
Right, and well, moving forward, the zoning commission could not approve a site plan without first the application or the plan being reviewed by this agency. So think of it this way: while they still have some work to do, they're pending this application before you. So our job is to look at the proposed activities. While we don't know exactly what the use or who the tenant may be for this building, we do have to consider it as light manufacturing. I would certainly want to ensure that whatever use is located inside that building, that if they're using any caustic chemicals or things like that, we have uses like that in town. A good one is Burke Manufacturing. They produce some really interesting technology, but that does require the use of some harsh chemicals. That stuff we don't want in our aquifer, obviously. So that the building's fully contained, things like that, floors are sealed, there's no drainage. While we don't get necessarily into the building permit aspects of the building, we just want to make sure that nothing's going to leak out of it. I think we should take a close look at the drainage plan, which that's where our town engineer comes in handy. He did make comments, which again, I did receive those today. I don't think Matt has even seen those, and I haven't even read them, so I'm not even sure what those say. Let's see. And his was again, memo dated to September 3rd, 2024 to me from Alex Close, PE Town Engineer regarding 296 Flanders Road, proposed light manufacturing facility. And it reads, after review of the material, I provide the following comments. Due to the size of the parking area and nature of the proposed development that could lead to a higher pollutant loading, I would recommend using hoods and deep sumps in all of the site catch basins and placing the basins, quote, offline, end quote, wherever practicable. Additionally, oil grit or proprietary separators should be properly sized and installed prior to any infiltration of the parking surface runoff into the ground. The engineer of record should inspect and certify that the site's stormwater management system, once installed, has been installed per their design. I would recommend this for any site with subsurface drainage elements, since much of this information is not captured in detail in the as-built drawings and it is difficult to correct once buried. Respectfully, Alex Close, PE Town Engineer.
So all those comments, hearing them 5 seconds ago, are all very easy for us to address either as a condition of approval or as a written letter back. Obviously, the last one is more of a post-construction condition, but in terms of certifying the stormwater management system, but no objections to having the modifications added to the plan as appropriate.
I think, I mean, he says here that the oil grit or proprietary separators should be properly sized. Obviously, that right, that we would say that's common sense, but common sense not always so common. So I'm thinking, is that something that the engineer of record would certify as being properly sized?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
because our town engineer doesn't come out and say it.
Yep, absolutely. Right? Yeah, so the oil water separators, the hydrodynamic separators are obviously taking the stormwater either directly from the parking lot or through the piped conveyance. The goal obviously is to remove oils, grit, grime, trash that end up on a stereotypical, prototypical commercial parking lot. We can provide backup data to show the engineer that those have been sized per the amount of flow that is coming through them. So he has those for the records, but I can say that they've been sized appropriately. They're called out on the plans, but we can provide more detail for his records.
So I don't know, maybe you could also touch on, now, they did respond to my first set of comments. So my comment 5, I don't know if you have that.
I do, give me a second, yep.
If you could maybe elaborate on that, just based on how I interpreted the reports. And I did briefly talk to our town engineer, so I left more confused than I started with. So maybe you could just clarify that for me.
Let me just, give me a second to.
Sure.
It's a paragraph. So the overall, the stormwater management system is trying to accomplish really three big things. One is to mitigate peak flows, right? The change in pervious and impervious area. You want to provide water quality improvements. So obviously there's nothing there now, but in the future there'll be pavements, and that can generate kind of grit, oil, trash, those sorts of things. So the standard is 80% TSS removal, which TSS stands for total suspended solids. And then the last kind of tenet that we always try to hit is matching drainage patterns, right? So any of the water that's directed towards the wetland, the amount of water still goes in that direction. Any that would be directed elsewhere to the road or maybe to the cemetery would consider the same as well. All those three kind of tent poles are matched within this overall plan in terms of how we're capturing, treating, and discharging from the property. It was also, I think, in our response back clarified that we did size everything for multiple storm events. Obviously, the 2-year event is the kind of most common event that we get here, all the way up to the 100-year event, which is more of that kind of 7, 8, 9 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, which is required by your regulations. And then we accomplished that with a series of surface basins, which are the ones that are adjacent to the wetlands. So these are above ground dug ponds. And then we have a series of subsurface basins as well, which are underneath the parking lot. You can see the two kind of darker rectangles that Gary's hovering over now there. There's the two above ground basins to the left, and then you see there's 2 additional stormwater management systems underneath the parking lot on the right-hand side of the store as well. All of them obviously convey and discharge to the wetlands to the west.
Sorry, can you walk us through those subsurface basins then? So
Yeah.
the water is going.
So water falls either on the roof of the building or within the parking lot. It's either conveyed from the roof or captured in catch basins. As the town engineer said, deep sumps and hoods would be part of those catch basins. The water flows from those catch basins via pipe to the underground systems. So those are like underground chambers. They have a volume that's associated with it for those storm events. Then there's outlet control structures that hold back the water to match the pre-development levels. And the water then is conveyed through pipes to the basins that are on the left-hand side adjacent to the wetlands. Those ponds would fill up and then spill into the adjacent wetlands and eventually the river further to the left.
And so even the basins that are to the right, those get piped all the way around?
Yeah, so basically everything on the screen you see here from a topography standpoint, let me make sure, goes from right to left.
Okay.
So everything for the most part is going this way. So the above ground basins are the final destination, final treatment of the treatment train prior to discharge back into the wetlands. And obviously we provide an operation and maintenance manual because all these devices play a part in cleaning and retaining the water, need to be maintained properly throughout the life of the system to make sure that it's operating as designed to hit that at least that 80% TSS removal.
For the record, that's the stormwater's moving from east to west. I think that's.
Oh, sorry, did I say backwards?
Well, you
I said right to left.
Right to left, and
Yeah.
then I think it was like even.
Yeah, east to west.
Use east to west. That would be right.
Two questions. I think in a previous briefing to us, you were talking about how any traffic impacts would have to be evaluated by Connecticut DOT. Just recalling the memory there, and then I know we talked about trucking, and that's a thing that has to be worked out with the zoning and whatnot. Those 2 items, do their resolution have the potential to change this plan enough so that you'll have to resubmit it to us?
So, yes, short answer, yes. We're not allowed to submit to the first agency on the DOT side would be OSTA, Office of State Traffic Administration. So the size of this development triggers their approval. We're not allowed to submit to them until we have an application with planning and zoning. They don't want to start looking at something until it's made a certain degree. So the goal would be to
planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning, yeah. So the goal would be to submit concurrently with if we're through this agency, to planning and zoning and OS at the same time. So they would be reviewing the driveway placement, the combined driveway with true value, and the traffic signal. Those are obviously significantly out of your upland review area. I think the one that's by Costco, I can't really tell from.
The second one's in it.
Yeah, this one is,
Oh, wait, it's.
actually this one's out of it as well.
You think so? That one? There?
Yeah, but this is the line right here.
Oh, it's back here.
Yeah,
Right here,
so,
yeah.
so there's a potential that, they wanted us to do something crazy, but majority of what they're looking at is the geometry along the roadway, curb cuts, sidewalks, trees, sight lines. So the short answer is yes, it's a potential, but at this point, I think it's pretty minimal. And unfortunately, I can't give you input on them because I'm not allowed to
No.
ask their
I
input till later in the process.
We're going to get to know you real good, I guess. The follow-on there, these mitigation systems that are in place govern only what comes off the roof of that warehouse and off the parking lots.
Yes, so any water that basically flows from this property to the wetlands
Yeah.
or flows through this property to the wetlands, we take into account. We don't go just to the boundaries, we
Yep.
go based on topography of the surrounding area.
If there's any industry peculiar drainage systems, treatment systems, whatever, that would come to realization when a client is actually selected, that might have an impact on this plan as well, right?
Yeah, you're saying we're giving you the use that we're intending to procure for the site, but if there's a specific tenant that is eventually selected and moves in here, and there's any plan modifications that affect what you guys are potentially hopefully going to approve, if they're minor, I think it's something that Gary could look at. If he deems something more significant, we would have to come back to you and potentially other agencies to review any modification to what you see here, so.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question on one of the previous images. We saw the FEMA flood zone. Are the basins within that flood zone area?
Is it on that plan?
So FEMA flood zone line is this darker line right here.
Okay, so the top one just touches
Here,
it.
let me zoom in.
Yeah, that might be easier for all to see.
There's the zone X at the
Yeah, zone
north
X
end of
and
the
zone
site.
AE.
Zone AE.
Yep.
You follow this
So we
line
should
there.
be outside of that zone. Yep.
Okay.
It
Yep.
looks like it touches right on the.
Yeah, we're probably getting pretty close
Over.
to it, obviously, to chase grade, but that darker hatched kind of rectangle that's kind of at the angle, that's where the water is discharging from the basin. So obviously we want to get water back into the wetland, back into the flood area, back into the river. But the goal, you can work within that area as long as we're not filling, which would obviously create flooding issues. That's obviously we're very close, but not filling intentionally within the floodplain.
And there's just one outlet to the wetlands on the lower basin?
Yeah, so the north one has that one that Gary was just pointing to, and if he scrolls down, the other basin should have, there's two, there's a piped connection there, but also an emergency overflow with that rectangular hatch there, just below it. Two pipes come in from the right, one pipe leaves to the left. That discharge is also outside the floodplain.
Is there any consideration to thermal impacts from all this impervious surface and no trees and?
Yeah, so the best way to get rid of thermal impacts is honestly infiltration. Luckily for us, this portion of the site, which is right before you discharge the wetlands, is the area that's not within the aquifer protection area.
Okay.
So these two above ground basins and the two to the right that are just under the edge of the parking lot there do allow infiltration. So the water, as it comes across the site, is getting to some of these systems, and it allows it to infiltrate and cool down, and it will be subsurface obviously for quite a bit of it as well. So should be any impacts to ecology or anything like that based on temperature of water.
Okay.
And then obviously I know that this is maybe part of the prior application, but maybe still of interest here. Obviously all public utilities are in this area. So, water, gas, electric, all those, there's no need for septic systems or wells to support this building. Further within the set as well, we do talk about erosion and sedimentation control. Obviously, the goal is to have that in place prior to any construction, to be monitored throughout construction, and to remain in place until the site is completely stabilized. What I usually define as stabilized is either building, pavement, or robust landscaping like grass growth. So those things that would be called to be in place would be silt sacks, silt fence, construction entrances, temporary sediment basins, soil stockpile areas. So those are all detailed on the plans. Yeah. Temporary sediment traps, all those things would be employed, are typical engineering procedures in terms of site development. And then obviously we have a robust landscaping plan as well. I believe you guys maybe during the site visit on Saturday saw that there's obviously a pretty extensive line of trees along, I'd say, called the Costco driveway. Those are all the buildings been placed to let those remain. And then obviously we're proposing to plant maybe extensively along frontage road to kind of continue that line as well. I do have some graphics that Gary doesn't have that I'd like to show you if you don't mind from the board. One of them is a comparison. I think we talked about the last meeting, the size of the development in relation to Costco. So I have an aerial that kind of shows you both. So I'll just bring that over here. Let me show you this one first, and then I'll flip to the next one. I think this just gives it a little bit more character, right? So obviously what's on the screen is black and white, but you can see obviously the area shown in white, the big rectangle is the proposed building, the gray is the pavement, the dark green kind of to the left-hand side, the western side obviously is the existing wetland areas, and then the light color green is proposed landscaping, right? So we do show obviously that towards the rear with the wetland basins, also towards the cash homes area, and then obviously the landscape buffer along the frontage of frontage road, and then obviously we have a lot of internal landscaped islands as well. So despite the development, obviously there's landscaping from a zoning standpoint and a aesthetic standpoint as part of this part of your community obviously was thought out of.
Do you want to drive around both ends of the building or just the north end?
You do have the ability to circle around the building in this location here. There's only emergency access through a gravel road on this half in terms of discussion with emergency services. So this plan tried to give you a little bit of a blow up of the area just so you can get this, because I know this was part of the conversation. Obviously the rectangle you can see there this is the aerial version of what's out there today. Obviously you can see the construction and that kind of tan colored dirt being moved as part of the DOT's work. But right below our building, you can see that kind of wedge at the bottom of the page there. That's the corner of the existing Costco building. And to the upper left of that is their existing fuel station, right? So you can see in comparison to where that existing building is and their parking lot and their fuel station, we're either in the same area or they're maybe a little bit closer with their fuel operation, just to give you kind of context of the neighborhood. And I'll just show that more closely.
Is the Costco building bigger than, or like similar in size to what's planning?
It's similar in size. I don't know
Small.
the exact square footage.
Actually, I think it's going to be smaller than this.
I don't know what the exact.
Yeah, I'd have to go check. It's about 200,000 square feet.
Okay.
Plus or
So it's-
this one.
I just didn't know how much was cut off, so I was curious if it was.
That's the Costco, and then obviously here's their fuel canopy, and they have their driveway here and that. So our pavement ends kind of in this area here, lines up with that approximate driveway.
So is there an alternative that you could move the building, let's say closer to True Value, to be further away from wetlands?
Or even move the building to the west and put all the parking on the east side?
Great question. So I'll just come the microphone. I don't know if you guys can hear me from over there.
Oh, it's just, this is just a warehouse, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, this.
It's just a warehouse.
Yeah, so one-story building. So this alternative, I can bring it closer if it helps you guys. This is actually our first sketch when we got engaged by the landowner to pursue a development here. So obviously Costco you can see here. This is frontage road, cash home, so just it's rotated slightly. We had a slightly larger building here, 215,000, oriented completely differently, shoved much further kind of towards cash homes. The problem with this layout is it does not comply with your zoning regulations. There's the key one with the regulations is that the building needs to be within 50 feet of the front setback. I guess as part of this kind of gateway development district, the thought process is you guys want buildings kind of closer to the street to frame out the area. So obviously this being a curved road with really the main access drives, because you're not allowed to access in between. DOT has deemed this as a non-access line given the proximity to the intersection. The only place to get the building adjacent to a property line to comply with that zoning regulation was to turn it and put it along this straight segment. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to comply with it in this kind of curved section here. So that's why we end up shrinking the building, turning it and pushing it back, but still trying to keep no direct wetland impacts and really keeping the building as far as we could out of the upland review area. Obviously, we're only clipping it in that one location, but we didn't start with the plan that we had. I want to say like we were open to the criticism and made some adjustments and shrank the development to.
Is it written someplace that the building has to be a rectangle?
No, I don't think
Couldn't
that's.
put a curved face on this side to match that road?
That just comes down to really the economics and the feasibility and the functionality of a building. It's not
So
a
as far as I
museum
can
or
tell,
a
that-
Guggenheim or something like that.
It doesn't have to be that fancy.
Just like a triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something close. As far as I can tell, the issues in the wetlands and the waterways is from the truck traffic and the runoff from the driveway in the back of the building. And so, to me, actually moving the building closer to the wetlands and putting the parking on the other side seems to make a lot of sense, because you're removing the source of all that particulate and oil and other stuff from being close to the wetlands.
Oh, you're saying the desire to have the building closer?
Yeah, just move it closer to the wetlands, but take all that parking and put it on the other side.
Yeah, that I understand. I guess the thought process with that, obviously, it severely limits the functionality of a building from an emergency services standpoint and access standpoint. Obviously, the driveway here that we've placed matches up with the Costco driveway as well to give access here, and we don't have permission yet for these two entrances. That they may not come to fruition based on DOT's review, and leaving space in this area here does allow us to infiltrate stormwater, because the aquifer protection line is about approximately here. It cuts the building kind of in half. Can't actually infiltrate anything over here. It's not allowed. So by having the building kind of a little bit off the wetlands, it does allow us to have space here from the building functionality, which I know it's not what this commission is really after, but it does allow stormwater infiltration on this side, which it does have a huge benefit in terms of treatment, recharge before discharging to the wetlands.
So the aquifer protection is in the front of the building, not in the back.
Yeah, this line here, this is in your aquifer protection area. Anything over here is not, and that allows infiltration. This side does not.
Is there any sheet flow off the property, or is all the water being captured and putting into the systems that you?
Everything. I mean, obviously, any water that falls outside of the curved, the curved line, very minimal.
Yeah.
Stays within the vegetated buffers. Anything that falls on impervious surface is
Yeah.
captured and treated.
Okay.
How far is the aquifer from the surface? Does that make sense? It's underneath the parking lot, right?
Yeah, I mean it's mapped on this portion of the site. I don't know the specifics of the depth of it, or if it varies throughout the year or through time. I just know that there's restrictions on what can be done in that area. Building and parking are allowed, obviously.
No rain gardens?
No, so we do have obviously above ground subsurface, or sorry, above grade detention basins, but no rain gardens, no. I did, it's 1 story. Do we have, you guys allow a maximum of 40 feet. Or zoning allows for up to 40 feet. I don't think we've provided any elevations of the building to date yet.
So I don't know much about subsurface basins. I'm just wondering what the maintenance is on those.
Yep, so the first thing to note is the treatment system prior to the basins is the catch basins, hydrodynamic separators, and the piping, right? So that captures a lot of the stuff that goes through. But anything that does get to the subsurface basin, there's inspection ports spaced out around the system so that you can take off a cap that would be at grade either in the landscaping or in a parking lot to be able to look down and take a rod reading to see if any sediment is accumulated in that. And then they do create, the manufacturers do create access ports that you can push in a device that actually jets out any sediment that's made its way into the system so it can be cleaned regularly.
And that would all be outlined to the...
Yes. Yep.
I have a question. The basin C mix, so C note C5 and 100, the C mix notes, is that a wet mix?
Let me see, it might be on the detailed plans here. Yeah, so the little pluses are called out as a basin seed mix, and then obviously the kind of zigzag cross pattern on the slopes are called out as a slope seed mix. Usually, let me see, we detail what those mean. So if you go to C5.100, there's a note that says slope seed mixes. So the basin seed mix is a New England erosion control restorative mix for detention basins and moist sites. Specifics are a riverbank wild rye, creeping red fescue, little blue stem, a big blue stem, switchgrass. There's a laundry list here. Application rate of 35 pounds per acre. Seed date obviously either in the fall or the spring. And then the slope seed mix is a New England conservation wildlife mix. And it specifies obviously, among other things, Virginia wild rye, little blue stem, big blue stem, creeping red fescue, similar application rate, 25 pounds per acre, same planting schedule.
Did we discuss sanitary sewer and capacity, and how does that work? Is it like first come, first serve? I mean, I know we have a limit, and there's another huge development that's suggesting they're going to use it, and then there are people around Dodge Pond who said we've been waiting for sewer for 20 years. How does all that?
So that works with the Water and Sewer Commission. Basically, the applicant here would have to go to them and request allocation for whatever amount they believe they're going to use. I don't know if you've done that already, if you've talked to Water and Sewer.
Nope, I believe that was one of the comment letters we provided, or that said basically that we need to apply for an allocation. Have not done so yet, but that's one of the next things on our list as we move through this process.
Just curious.
Well, I do know, and as a whole, allocation is an issue for us.
So, just a question.
Yes.
Is the allocation, should that be done first before this, or can be done, like, what's the order? Only because I'm ex officio to water and sewer, and they're...
Statutorily, I don't know that there's any specific order that they have to go there before they come to wetlands. whereas they do have to come here, or at least get a report has to be furnished from them, from the wetland agency to the zoning commission or the planning commission, depending on the application. So that requirement, to the best of my knowledge, does not exist as it pertains to water and sewer. I believe they just need to take the, to separately go there. I believe they need to do that before they get their zoning approval, because the zoning commission is not going to approve the site plan without knowing that they're able to accommodate the waste that's generated. Even though there's only one office, again, that still means there's a bathroom, at least one bathroom, right? So at some level, yeah.
Well, if it has parking for 350 cars,
Yeah, 369, I believe, is the number. Obviously, we don't have a user though, right? That this is a max out, right? It could be less, but yeah.
And that's the max based on the underlying zoning.
Correct. Yeah, and obviously, the user could come in. The sanitary flow is not based off parking spaces, but off use of the building, right? So usually with a building like this, it's based on the employee count.
What is the size, sorry, did you?
go ahead.
No,
Just-
I'm going
I'm
off
trying to-
topic. If you
yeah,
have a
Okay,
related
I'm trying to
question.
digest the
No, go
difference
ahead.
between user and employee. Is that,
Probably the same. Well, if there's if there's first, second, and third shift, the employee would be different than the user. So if
What-
there's
what-
30 people at a time.
is this like a store? Are we gonna sell stuff? Why would
No, it's-
users
it-
quote, be unquote?
Yeah, so it's the waste generation in terms of sanitary waste is by use, right? So we're calling this light manufacturing, whereas if you were to permit a house, they do by bedroom, right? If you do retail, it's by square foot. Manufacturing and warehouse is done by employee, right? Because this could be a big building, there could be 5 people in it.
So,
You could have an apartment complex that's much smaller than this, but there's 500 people living in it, showering, doing stuff. So each use is treated differently by public health code, and so we would obviously make an assumption on the number of employees that would be here, not knowing the tenant, but giving a general assumption of industry standards of who would be employed here, the numbers, and then apply for that.
interesting.
Yeah, you guys get the, I guess, the benefit of seeing the application first, but not knowing all the information.
You know, hopefully somebody in town or a legislator somewhere is taking a 40,000-foot view of all of these applications for sewer.
Yeah, I believe that would be Ben North, our utilities engineer, and he's staff to our Water and Sewer Commission. And I've had discussions with him regarding what's available for us, and I think, you know, we're going to have discussions. Long-term planning, we're probably going to need to, at some point, purchase more capacity over in New London. So it's not like they don't necessarily have it, but it's going to cost the town
Well,
money.
it's just that, we're going to start taking sewer from Old Lyme.
Yep. And again, you know, even New London has a limit. I don't know what that is off the
Right.
top of my head. I think Ben has got his hands wrapped around that a little bit better than I do. And then I'm sure somebody in New London certainly does. But I can't definitively answer the question, but I can just say,
So to me, that just sets the boundaries on the problem, okay? The
yeah, and
real issue is who gets first crack and how much do they get?
it's kind of first come, first serve.
And that's what I asked earlier, is it just first come, first served? In which case, that seems rather short-sighted.
I would agree. I do know that we do have properties in town where there's nothing developed, but they're in the sewer shed and they've been assessed and they've been paying assessments. So they have a right, if you will, at some level, an expectation that they will connect in the future someday. You know, I think he does kind of take into consideration those uses or those potential uses on this vacant land as it pertains to our capacity of what's available. You know, how closely we look at that, you know, I mean, it's not with a fine tooth comb necessarily, gallon for gallon, but I certainly did meet recently with another proposed developer on some property behind Motel 6. What he can get for allocation there is roughly, for, again, residential type development, is like 12,000 gallons a day. It's not much. So this developer's like, well, with that, I have to put half my development on sewer, the other half on septic. To get, the density that he needs in order to make it financially feasible. So we run into some of that, and yeah, so our sewer capacity is going to become a problem, I think, potentially. Nothing that can't be handled.
Be that as it may, the purpose of tonight is to ask as many questions as we can think of to this guy, and end the hearing, and then decide whether or not to grant an application with or without conditions based on our questions. Correct.
Yes. Again, because we do have recently revised plans, I'm
don't
going
need
to
to make a
recommend
decision
that staff
tonight,
have an
no.
opportunity to review those revised plans in their entirety and respond in writing. So I would just ask that the commission respectfully consider leaving the hearing open
Yeah.
to our next regular scheduled meeting.
And obviously, those letters are fresh to me as you heard them
Right.
too.
Oh,
If you guys are happy with them as conditions of approval, I would not protest, but if I have the opportunity to, I'd obviously respond formally so you guys have something in record.
And that's, I think, what staff would like to take a look at so that we can make a formal recommendation to the agency.
Yep.
Yes.
Is the date then the 9/18/24? Is that just that by the date that you had to have to start the public hearing? Is that what the date
Oh,
on
no.
the agenda? I just want to make sure we're getting the proper date.
This is date to render a decision by 10/7. Is what I have. Date of receipt is July 16th. Public hearing is today. Date to render decision by October 7th.
So 9/18 was the 65 days in which we had to open this hearing.
Okay, that's what I, okay.
Yeah. So we now have 35 days to conduct it, so we will have to close it at our next
Mm-hmm.
meeting, short of an extension. If we need one, I don't anticipate that necessarily at this point. And then upon the close, we would have another 65 days to render a decision. I think based on the responses and a cursory review of those responses, you probably won't need all of that time.
And when's your next meeting?
I think it's October 2nd.
First.
First Tuesday.
October 1st?
Yeah, October 1st. I do have another question.
Sure.
So just because in that area we've had some issues with sediment and overflow, but that's mostly slope related. But I do have a question. That outlet pipe that's going from the second basin.
Yep.
What does that look like? Is there going to be a riprap underneath it, or is it just gonna? How big is the pipe? What is that outlet going to look like? And it's I'm assuming it outlets above ground.
Yep, great question. Just let me flip to the page and I can get you some more details on that. Okay, so the southern basin, the bigger one on the lower left-hand corner, if Gary can zoom in a little closer. So that pipe is a 15-inch HDPE pipe, so a plastic pipe. It's sloped very flat, so it's 0.5%. So it's not even 1%. So it's very, very flat. And it does outlet to grade, and there's a riprap outlet there as well. So it's going to be moving slow, and then there's stone obviously to help dissipate that, so it's not going to be a washout effect and kind of rilling as it gets to the wetland. But again, as part of maintenance, those areas should be inspected as well, so that if something does occur, it can be corrected quickly in terms of reinforcing it if conditions change or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty legible.
We don't have any further questions at this moment. I would like to have any members of the public that may be here to speak, if that's okay with the applicant.
Absolutely. I'm happy to answer any other questions that come up.
Yeah, my name is Donald Danilla, D-A-N-I-L-A, 24 Patagonia Drive, East Lyme. I'm a Board of Selectmen appointed member of the East Lyme Commission for the Conservation of Natural Resources. I find it kind of ironic that I came here tonight, along with probably a dozen other people, for a development on a lot that was 20,000 square feet, which is less than 10% of the size of this proposed building. And they all left. I decided to stay here to hear about this because I haven't kept up with this very large proposed development in our town. It sounds like there's a lot of things in motion yet that have to be decided with respect to this development. I certainly urge you, and I was happy to hear many questions that you asked already concerning the stormwater system, stormwater management, stuff of that sort. I think that's very important. Certainly, this development will both potentially affect our drinking water aquifer, which is subsurface, as well as our surface water in the Patagonia River watershed. A couple notes that I jotted down. I think I would urge you to go back to your clients and maybe even upgrade even further stormwater management. Think of things that are like biofilters, like a tree filter that could be used in some of the catch basins that would not only remove stormwater, but would also help to remove any pollutants, which they are pretty good at doing. The basins, you read off the list of the species of plants that will go in there. I certainly hope it's well maintained, or otherwise I would bet dollars to donuts within 5 years it's going to be a giant field of mugwort like we've seen in many other places in town that have had these things, including the hole-in-the-wall beach was supposed to be a stormwater demonstration project, and it's all it is now is a mugwort factory. The other thing I noted, was kind of interested in your back and forth about sanitary, how much wall you would need. You mentioned at one point, well, we might only have 5 employees in there. Well, then why do you have 369 parking spaces? I mean, I think that is, and one of the things I've seen, again, I'm sure everybody here has seen this, when you go around and drive around, you see these Walmarts or these other large developments where the parking, we're about 1950s thinking where we're going to have a parking lot to match the size of our building, whether it's used or not. So you have all this impervious surface, some of which is never ever used. So I would really like to see that. Again, it's probably not a function of this agency to determine that. Maybe it's zoning if you're going before them, but I would really like to see the parking match what kind of work and employees are going to go in there into that building. My final thing is, again, and this is something totally not under the purview of the Inland Wetlands Agency, but something I've regretted for many years, that I never got involved with that nearby Costco development to bring this up. This development is going to be extremely close to the Eversource substation. I would urge you to go back to your clients and bring up the idea of placing solar power panels on the surface, on the roof rather, of this building, maybe even over the parking lot. One of the biggest costs for solar energy in the state is moving that energy into the transmission and distribution system. If you look at a map of Connecticut, and I've done that because I've got involved in solar energy projects on the environmental side, most of them are built very close to major power lines or substations that can accept that energy. You're very, very close. This could be a very sound economical project for this development, if you can look into that, because I think with building this size, with the square footage of that roof, you could produce one heck of a lot of power, and I think it could be very economically important to your client as well as to all of us. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Don. Mhm. That's it for the public. Anybody have any other questions? All right, now, so we have a lot of material to look through. I know we have some follow-up information that will be headed our way from town, and we'll keep the public hearing open until October 1st.
Sounds good. I'm happy to see those comment letters, and I'll respond accordingly, and I will see you here in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Do you have,
Motion to continue.
oh, we need a motion. Do you have a question first?
No, I was waiting goodbye.
Oh. Didn't want to hear it. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn the,
No,
continue, sorry, not adjourn, continue the public hearing for, at our next regular scheduled meeting, October 1st.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Everyone? Okay. Thank you. Okay. So moving on, we have the acceptance of the meeting minutes, the special meeting minutes of July 16th, 2024. Do I hear any motions?
Make a motion to accept special meeting minutes of July 16th, 2024.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Greg, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's everyone, right? Yeah. Ex officio report.
Was that
Unanimous,
unanimous?
yes.
Hi, Ann Chicallo, ex officio from the Board of Selectmen. Let's see, the Board of Selectmen has been working diligently, probably for about the past month, on the Fair Rent Commission ordinance. We had a public hearing on it on August 20th, and it became effective as of August 30th. We are August 31st. So we are in the midst of currently getting members to fill that commission.
And what's the name of it? I'm sorry.
The Fair Rent Commission.
Okay.
Fair Rental Commission. This is for basically any issues with tenants and landlords can come
Increasing
and
rates.
well, increasing, but also to be basically reasonable and fair to both
Right,
sides. And to
right.
hear there's in the ordinance there's like 13 different issues and that need to be addressed basically, and hopefully try to mediate decisions. So that's what we've been working on. That's about it. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Is the board electing the members of that commission?
We will be appointing, yeah.
Appointing?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So we're working on that now as we speak. That's all I have tonight. Nothing? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ann. There is no new business. And then we have the 2 pending applications. Do I need to read through these?
No. Both tabled.
So next would be the old business, so the inland wetlands watercourse regulations, the review of the proposed draft revisions.
So what I have to report on that is I did meet with Attorney Zamarka. He is halfway through them.
Okay.
He said they were quite extensive. He's going to try to get them completely reviewed before he goes out on knee surgery. He's got a little knee surgery coming up or something like that. So he'll be out for a couple of weeks. So that may just kind of delay things. So I just did ask him if he could possibly report back before that so that we could continue our work. So we'll see how that goes. That's all I have on that matter. So that's still under review.
Okay. So we'll continue that to next meeting. So for reports, for chairman's report, I don't have anything. So that's back to you, inland wetlands agent report. Administrative and commission issued permits.
Yeah, so obviously still working with the Sound and Cove. I'm working to find the as-built survey. I did actually reach out to BL Companies. Ironically, it was Matt Bruton, who's I'm working with here, to try to get a copy of the as-built showing all of the grading and drainage. I'm not certain why there's not a copy in our office. We have all the proposed stuff. I'm able to find every proposed plan there ever was. So we do have a zoning improvement location plan, which shows the location of the buildings and the roads, everything but what I really need to see here. So that being said, I did let Joe Wren know, who is the engineer that they retained to come up with a repair design. So he may have to go out there and survey it sooner than later. It's just in order to make any progress on this. But he has been retained, so he is asking me, to try to go as quickly as I can so he can go faster, because he understands that this is a significant issue.
Right.
And I think his client wants it resolved as quickly as possible, but time is ticking. So I'll work with Joe on maybe coming up with some maybe intermediate or temporary erosion control to at least try to mitigate what's going on there now, because since I've been there and since all of my inspections, there's no other erosion controls in place, so it just continues to erode. So we'll try to get something working there, or at least a sedimentation basin maybe at the end of the right-of-way, at the bottom of the toe of the slope before the, I don't know. I'll work with Joe on finding a solution to temporarily kind of mitigate the runoff. I don't know if we can, because I think it's a large volume of water, so I don't think you can temporarily mitigate that, but I think we can probably put some ENS controls in place. 9 Rocco Drive, I did finally speak with Mr. Van Wagner and indicated to him he did not receive, and he acknowledged not receiving the certified mailing, which we got returned back. He did come into the office and acknowledge that he heard that there was certified mail to him. So I gave him a copy off the machine. While I probably should have had him sign a green card at that time, I did not. But he is aware. I think both administrative assistants were present, so they can vouch for that he was in the office. So he's aware of the violation. I did indicate to him that if the agency is pursuing another issue with the house being built on Upper Pat and wanting shade trees alongside the water course, I said I think the same would apply here. So he kind of looked at what are you looking for. He goes, I cut down all pine trees. So I put them back. So I'm going to work with him on getting something restored or something put back in their place. So that is moving forward, and I'm at least made contact with the man and am able to converse with him, and I have a phone number and some contact information. So that's moving forward. So I am hopeful that I can resolve that and just get some plantings in there, and that violation can go away. While it will take time for those plantings to mature, it will be what it will be. But at least the area will be restored. 137 Flanders Road, this is a notice of violation. It's the house across from Society there that you may see it all dug up. There's a little water course between the salon and the home. So I don't know if I'll pronounce his name right. Well, Mr. Hassa indicated that the work he was doing was exempt under Section 4 of our or would be Section 4 of our regulations. He was pointing to the statute because it was maintenance of existing property. He has flooding in his basement, and he's trying to install a footing drain. So that being said, he needs a building permit as well for the work, which he's pursuing with Mr. Garside. He was a little concerned that this notice would hold his work up, and I told him to continue to secure her home, make it watertight. I said, we can work with you on restoring the area. I said, but the grading, replacing of the pipe, fine, that I'll say that it's exempt under Section 4, like that makes sense. I think the agency would recognize that. But all of the grading and everything associated with it is so close to the stream that to me it seemed like it was a little excessive. So I don't think that he needed to go as far from the home with it as he did. But it isn't running into the brook or stream. I don't know, it's a drainage ditch more so to me, but it shows up on our maps as a stream. And it enters a catch basin and goes down Society Road anyway. So at least there's a catch basin, so if anything enters the stream, it'll hopefully stop there in the sump. So I am working with Mr. Hassa,
Okay.
and hopefully that will be resolved and stabilized shortly. 249 Old Black Point Road, we sent them a cease and desist order. This is one where the house was built, CO'd, all was good. There was a wetland pocket out back between the seawall and the home that they had to maintain. I think I last reported they went out and filled it in. I since have been contacted by engineer Ed Wenke. He's making an application, if you will, for the restoration of that area.
Okay.
So he's, I have received, I think, a draft plan, but he's working on coming up with a mitigation plan for it.
Okay.
So that's in the works. So we have some progress.
Did you skip the 15 Spring Glen Road, or did I
Yeah.
just?
I,
No, you
no,
did.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I saw Hassa, yeah, 15 Spring Glen. I still need to pursue that. That was an area where it looked like they were trying to extend their driveway. I don't know, by about 10, 15 feet, which would encroach on. There's a brook that runs between the backs of all the homes in the neighborhood. So it's, I
Oh.
don't know the abutting, the parallel road. Is it Park? No, Park. Anyway, it's in Giant's Neck area. So working on that.
Speaking of Giant's Neck, whatever happened with that corner lot? The one that filled in, water was coming, we saw that they built the house in the middle and then the overflow was going on the street and freezing. And they like filled in the corner of their property. You know what I'm talking about? We saw the house, we approved the house that's next door, and they had the water running through and then along the property, right to the corner.
Was this the Habitat property?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was in the Heights.
yeah, the neighbor filled in that.
I want to say no. I want to say it's a different, same neighbor, well, it's like down the road.
Did they resolve that area?
I can't recall. I'd have to go back and look. I'm guessing because it's not on the top of my
Yeah.
memory. I don't. We approved a house. Oh, the Habitat, has that been? Yes, I did talk to, okay, yes, now, okay. The other end of the
There's lots of
neighborhood.
property.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The other end of Spring Glen Road, with Laurelwood.
Yes.
Right. Or Laurel Hill. Was it Laurel? I need a map. Sorry. Anyhow, yes, I did talk to Alex, our town engineer, and said my concern was any overflow. He still suggested that when if they do anything further, they should work with an engineer. I said, but they're not going to do anything beyond what's there, right? They're thinking this is solve the problem. If not, it's actually better than it was. It may not be 100%, but I said, I don't know if that's going to solve the icing issue, if there is one. So we're going to look this winter to see if there's icing. If there's icing, I'm going to send them a letter and say they need to address it. Again, I don't know what will happen when they build the Habitat homes, if they ever do.
Mhm.
I'm sure they're costly, but in discussing the matter with Alex, he's comfortable as it is.
Okay.
So that.
And that clearing the drainage ditch at Chapman Woods, that was completed, right?
That's been completed. Looks pretty successful. I took a look at it. I got some pictures. So I don't necessarily have before pictures, but I believe those were submitted with the application. There didn't seem to be any major issues there. There was a small check dam that did get kind of pushed down, but it looks like they were able to clean that up and get most of that material back out that they put in. But I think it's going to function well, and now you can see the pipe coming out from underneath the road there, and water's flowing. I did get a complaint from a neighbor to that development on Damon Heights Road. I went out to investigated his property. They're pretty much like rear lots, and where their driveway splits, it looks like what is a naturally occurring wetland, and it's somehow just overflowing today. And all I could attribute it to was the excess of rainfall that we've had. He seems to think it just seems to grow, but he's a new homeowner, and I think was a little more frustrated that he wasn't made aware of how extensive the wetland might be. I did say there could be a pipe underneath the driveway, because looking at your neighbor's driveway, it's been quite impacted by the overflow. You could just tell that this thing's been inundated multiple times because the driveway's just all, frost heaves and starting to break up. Where his driveway, the neighbor who was complaining, his was a fairly decent shape, but he was concerned that this wetland's on his property, so if they have to fix the driveway, how does that impact his land? Anyway, I don't think anything from Chapman Farms is affecting that wetland. It does abut the property, but I think it's good to go, and I don't think there's any connection down to what they did there, so all's well. That's all I have to report. I don't have anything on Little Indian Pond.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to mention before we adjourn?
Can I ask Anne a question? Can we like circle back? I forgot. Yeah, I noticed something, like, they put the new sidewalk in on Boston Post Road, like across from.
You mean by the end, or do you mean over by the post office?
So there's a new sidewalk like across from like the laundromat and like El Pomodoro.
Yeah.
That was put in by the town?
Yes.
Or,
Yeah.
okay. There's like one little section that wasn't done. It's like,
Yeah, it's grass.
why?
If you
I didn't look. I think
if
you
you look-
drive by it, and
yeah,
I'm
if
like,
you-
I never stopped to really look.
If you look closely, I think it'll get connected. There's a utility box there,
Oh, okay.
so there's some utilities we have to work around, and I believe that's kind of the holdup.
Okay. I was just curious because I drive by it.
It's
and
like
I-
literally smack dab.
So I'm like, there's like
I believe so. I'll
one
confirm.
square.
Be like,
Yeah, it's like
I
one
saw that too,
square.
and I'm like, oh well, that must be an EverSource problem because we gotta wait for them to move or
Okay.
something.
That makes sense.
Okay, I was just curious
Um,
for my own knowledge.
I do have one other item I could report on, and that is Farm Meadow Road off of Grassy Hill. I did speak to Bob Landino. That's going to hopefully start moving forward faster than I thought, but it's just been so long, I don't know. But he had a problem with EverSource reaching out and not having any communication back. The town, we were able to help him out with that, and we started to get a lot of progress being made. I don't know, just a lack of breakdown in communication. Something got kind of swept under the rug, and that's all. It just got overlooked, and the project sat at EverSource's desk. So they need to move a pole and do a bunch of work before he can bury the cistern and put the final course of asphalt. There is an area at the entrance of that off to the west, which is an existing wetland, and then there's plantings that have to go in the back of that. At this point, I'm a little nervous saying, let's go do that because it's so well vegetated now. Nobody's been in there for years. So is it worth having them do those plantings? Not certain. Maybe I'll take some photos and maybe we can have some discussions and
Okay.
figure it out. Maybe do a site walk even.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Let's add it to the list. All right, anything else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, everybody.